Okay, I know this sounds ridiculous, but ice cream is actually one of the healthiest foods you can eat, and we have the science to prove it. It's literally just eggs, milk, sugar, and cream. What is so bad about that? Milk and eggs are loaded with nutrition. You probably have no problem with them, yet somehow when they get put together, they're junk food. Well, you might say it's all of the sugar and saturated fat, right? That's what junk food is. Well, no, it's not. In fact, most food we think of as junk food is actually the complete opposite. It's all starch and unsaturated fat. Chips, french fries, donuts, chicken fingers. None of these foods are primarily sugar or high in saturated fat. People are actually eating less sugar and saturated fat than ever, along with more starch and unsaturated fat, yet are fatter and sicker than ever before. You see, the issue is that when people think of sugar, they think of cakes, donuts, soda, candy bars, that kind of stuff. Then people say, okay, I'm quitting sugar, and they cut out all these foods, ice cream included, and they start cooking for themselves, eating more protein, more vitamins and minerals. They start exercising, probably improving their sleep habits, being more mindful of their lifestyle in general, and then they start to feel way better. And then they look back and say, see, it was the sugar. But it's important for us not to conflate sugar itself with all the other stuff that's in these foods that makes them so terrible for us. Well, what other stuff, you might ask? Well, we'll get to that in a bit. In fact, the vast majority of the calories in ice cream are actually from the dairy fat, not from the sugar. We have plenty of research to suggest that replacing our high starch and unsaturated fat diets with sugar and saturated fat actually makes us leaner and healthier. I'm not kidding. Take this study. Swapping out half of the starch for sugar in the diet literally increases metabolism and makes animals thin. Yes, this has been shown repeatedly in humans too. Eating sugar actually increases our metabolism more than other types of carbs. We can then look to this experiment that demonstrates that swapping out the most commonly consumed type of fat today with more saturated fat actually makes animals resistant to weight gain and even prevents liver disease. In fact, these facts are so well known that scientists have literally created diets specifically to fatten up animals or keep them lean and healthy. The fattening diets are high in unsaturated fats and starch, and the diets that keep them lean and healthy are 30% sugar. If you seem to crave treats like ice cream, it's actually one of the best signs of health you can think of. Seriously, one of the ways we can test for depression is by observing preference for sugar. Our desire for sugar declines as we age and become blunted to the pleasures of life. One of the great things that sugar does for us is to lower our stress hormones. Another reason you might want to grab the Haagen-Dazs after a long day at the office. The hormones that make us feel stressed, things like cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline, mainly serve to increase our body's production of glucose. And when we eat enough carbs, it lessens the output of these hormones. Sugar in particular is a great way to get these anti-stress effects, as it can be stored more effectively in our liver and muscles than other types of carbs. A common thing you'll hear is that sugar is bad because it spikes your blood sugar and ends up causing diabetes. The key point here is that diabetes is not about eating too much sugar, it's about not being able to use that sugar. In other words, insulin resistance. When your body is resistant to insulin, your cells don't use that sugar for energy, and your liver actually starts making tons of sugar to compensate, and then you get high blood sugar. The beautiful thing is that the other components of ice cream actually support your body's ability to use the sugar, which I'll explain in a sec. Okay, fine. Even if sugar isn't bad and can actually be good, all of that saturated fat from the milk and cream has to be the problem, right? Well, even if you believe the mainstream idea that saturated fat is bad, even they are beginning to admit that saturated fat from dairy is remarkably protective against all of the problems they claim saturated fat causes. There's this so-called dairy fat paradox that is the well-acknowledged fact that despite being highly saturated fat, it's actually inversely associated with heart disease, as well as type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, obesity, and even several types of cancer. This effect is anywhere from a 20 to 50% risk reduction, and one study even showed up to a 90% reduction in the incidence of developing gestational diabetes for higher dairy fat consumption. Dairy fat has a myriad of unique fats that have incredible effects on our health, and this is where the true power of ice cream really becomes apparent. Two of these fats have drawn massive attention in the scientific community as of late for their ability to favorably impact our metabolism. The vast majority of fats in foods and in the body have an even number of carbon atoms. So C15 and C17, found almost exclusively in dairy, they have some unique properties. Due to their unorthodox structure, these fats are able to favorably impact metabolism in our mitochondria, allowing them to churn out more energy. This not only makes us feel more energetic and youthful, but it's really at the core of our long-term disease prevention. In fact, recent research has shown that C15 has almost too many incredible benefits to even count. It protects against free radical production and reduces every inflammatory and pro-fibrotic factor measured. Not only this, it also decreased blood sugar and triglycerides in obese animals and even corrected anemia by raising red blood cell count. At the same time, it actually protected against iron overload in the liver and subsequent liver damage. C15's cousin, C17, has shown similar properties, even lowering the iron-containing protein ferritin in animals. Elevated ferritin levels increase the risk of things like heart disease or even just dying from any cause, while donating blood to lower ferritin does the opposite. That's nice, but I think I'll just go with the ice cream on this one. Researchers propose that C15 might even be essential to have in the diet, and studies have shown that it is actually safer and more effective than the essential omega-3 fats that are sold in fish oil and promoted so widely. While the latter might have some benefits, it can easily be damaged and thus lead to a number of problems, including killing healthy cells. C15 is completely non-toxic to our native cells, yet actually suppresses the growth of breast cancer cells. Another study just this year involved researchers literally taking the fat from milk and putting it on liver cancer cells. Lo and behold, it almost completely wiped them out while inhibiting histone deacetylases and suppressing the JAK2 STAT3 pathway. In other words, it acted on the same molecular and biochemical mechanisms that common cancer drugs do. In fact, C15 has recently been said to share the same pathways with all of the leading anti-aging drugs, including metformin and rapamycin. These include the aforementioned anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic, glucose-lowering, and anti-cancer properties, as well as having antimicrobial and mTOR inhibiting effects. Another fat found almost exclusively in dairy is known as trans palmitoleic acid, which again has some incredible effects on our health that give us a delicious way to outpace big pharma. Some of pharma's biggest cash cows to treat diabetes work by acting on an intracellular protein known as PPAR-gamma, which restores insulin sensitivity and lowers inflammation. Well, it turns out that not only does trans palmitoleic acid from dairy activate PPAR-gamma, it also prevents obesity, fatty liver, and increases metabolism when given to animals. Vaccenic acid is yet another fat that only comes from dairy, and it's recently been shown to enhance immune cell function and even anti-tumor immunity. It has a proven anti-cancer effect in breast, nasal, and skin cancers, both by directly causing cancer cells to commit suicide and by enhancing our body's defenses to clear them out. This fat also has an anti-inflammatory effect on the gut, which might even help with symptoms like bloating, constipation, and digestive discomfort. One study showed that vaccenic acid administered to animals was highly protective against heart disease. The animals given the fat not only improved their lipid numbers in the blood, but believe it or not, they had a 30% reduction in plaque accumulation in the arteries. Next, we need to discuss conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA, another fat found mainly in dairy fat that has been thoroughly studied for its extensive health benefits for over 30 years. It originally gained tons of traction for its remarkable ability to stop breast cancer and heart disease, which at this point shouldn't be much of a surprise given ice cream's track record. However, it has a striking and selective impact on body composition. The original research on it showed that it led to over 50% lower body fat while markedly increasing lean mass in animals despite eating the exact same diet otherwise. It was demonstrated that CLA literally prevents fat from going into storage directly. Since then, tons of science has been done in humans to show that it was not a fluke. CLA really does help to increase both muscle mass and shed fat. One of the main ways it does this is by acting as a natural performance-enhancing drug. Yes, CLA actually stimulates the enzymatic production of testosterone, which helps in athletic prowess, muscle building, and fat loss. I'm barely even scratching the surface here on dairy fat. I haven't even touched on articles like this that dive into all of the incredible anti-cancer fats in ice cream. Sphingomyelin, which is shown to have tumor incidence in animals, butyrate is a well-known broad-spectrum anti-inflammatory metabolic fuel for the gut, and ether lipids, which are potent anti-cancer fats, are just some of the magic of dairy fat. However, there is a major caveat here, and it's that the vast majority of ice cream at the supermarket is loaded with garbage that will worsen your health. The various additives outside of the necessary ingredients have recently been getting attention for all of the nasty effects that they have, and the research on this is going to shock you. But before we get into that, it's important to mention that you shouldn't just eat ice cream if you don't crave it, and you also shouldn't just have a 90% Haagen-Dazs diet. It simply means that if you like ice cream and you want it, then you should go for it. If you find yourself gaining tons of weight when incorporating ice cream or slamming gallons of it just to satisfy your cravings, then chances are there's a deeper issue going on. If either of these sounds like you, or you have any other health problem, then we're happy to help. Our team of practitioners is equipped to help you reach your health goals with an all-hands-on-deck comprehensive approach. Click the link in the top right of your screen or the description below to schedule a free call where we can help you. Unfortunately, tons of slop is added to the vast majority of ice cream to improve shelf life, texture, color, and other properties. Carboxymethylcellulose and polysorbate 80 are two of the most well-studied of these ingredients that find their way into tons of ice creams and were found to promote intestinal inflammation by disrupting the composition of gut bacteria. They also induce the signs of diabetes, causing animals to put on fat and become insulin resistant. Feeding studies in humans have just confirmed these findings, showing that people fed these thickening agents have marked detrimental changes in gut flora that coincides with digestive symptoms. Carrageenan has been under fire for decades at this point for being overtly toxic to the gut and being implicated in colon cancer. And there's a ton of controversy around the neurotoxicity of various food dyes, as they can cause behavioral abnormalities in animals and exacerbate ADHD symptoms in children. Red number 40 increases susceptibility to gut inflammation and is even directly mutagenic to our DNA. Lecithin contributes to insulin resistance and gut dysbiosis, while mono and diglycerides do the same while increasing endotoxin levels in the body. Gums like xanthan gum can do the same. Propylene glycol is literally an antifreeze and in vape juice. All of these bizarre pseudo food ingredients are in ice creams from Ben & Jerry's, Bluebell, Breyers, and countless others. That is the real problem with ice cream, not the sugar, milk, eggs, and cream that are supposed to be in it. Surprisingly, the simple Haagen-Dazs flavors like vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and coffee actually skip all of the nonsense and just have the basic ingredients. So that's our go-to. And yes, it is a health food. Don't let them fool you. Subscribe to our channel.